if you're a product manager, you've probably heard both extremes. Some people say product managers should stay out of engineering's way. Other people say you should be the team's therapist. So which one is it? Let's find out. Yeah, I'm going to share some stories from my career and as well as peers of mine, and kind of get down to, should product managers have one-on-ones with engineers? So when Slack launched a feature called Threads in 2017, the product manager at the time used to have one-on-ones with their engineers, and she discovered a critical issue that would have delayed launch by almost 2 sprints. Right, that would have just ended up nuking the launch on the first day. And because she was having one-on-ones with our engineers, the product manager found that issue earlier, and they were able to launch on time. And then Slack Threads was such a great feature, since 2017. It's been used well over the years, and now it's been adopted across different chat products. So does that mean every product manager should have one-on-ones with their engineers? Now, having said that, there are a few advantages. Let's go through some of the pros, right? The advantages of having one-on-ones. One is context syncing, right? So you're very much in sync with your engineer on whatever they're working on and why they're working on it, right? What you're trying to build with them. What are the tech constraints? What's the user pain point? Two is trust and morale, right? Like when your engineer is talking to you and you're talking to them regularly in a weekly schedule or bi-weekly schedule, an engineer feels like they're trusted, right? They can trust you. I've had instances where I would spend 15 minutes with engineers just not talking about work as well, just life in general. Like, how are things going? And even if we talk about work, maybe more broader level work, like how's progress in terms of your career, and then sort of like then ease into the workflow of things. And I found that to be quite positive. And then as well, lastly, it is having a one-on-one lets you make faster decisions, right? In today's world, today's day and age, a lot of roles are remote. A lot of people work not in sync with each other, right? Someone's in Europe, someone's in North America, someone's in China. And so it's okay to sometimes have asynchronous collaboration where people are not necessarily able to talk to each other. You can't walk over to someone's desk. So having a one-on-one really helps get you to faster green lights, faster communication. But having said that, I do think there are some negatives, right? Like, we need to discuss the negatives before we come to a decision to having one-on-ones. Firstly, if you are a good product manager, your communication is very clear. You're able to write product specs or requirements or user stories to a very strong level. One-on-ones are not the solution, right? You need a full-on team Q&A, like a product spec review, a meeting, alignment meeting, kickoff, and then go from there. Your one-on-ones will not be that fruitful. If you are good at communication, good at planning. Secondly, and this is very important, does your team have a tech lead? Do your engineers have an engineering lead, a tech lead, right? If the answer is yes, then it feels like you're kind of sneaking around the engineering lead's back. And also, it's now the engineering lead's responsibility to have one-on-ones with their engineers, not your engineers anymore, right? If you don't have a tech lead, it makes more sense to potentially have one-on-ones, right? But they're, again, optional habits. And thirdly, and Airbnb's CEO also believes in, he doesn't believe in one-on-ones, by the way. But I think it's also interesting to see that engineers don't bring too many problems to you, right? It kind of sounds selfish from a product perspective to say, but your job as a product manager is user empathy, bring the user voice, strategize, roadmap. Your job is not to debug engineering code. Your job is not to make choices on what kind of backend stack the company needs to be using, right? These are technical problems that is not product management responsibility. And sometimes engineers can feel like if they bring it up in a one-on-one, it's more comfortable, and now suddenly it's on the product manager to now take this to the CEO or the manager or the director. And they've sort of like washed their hands out of it. So there's a problem. So yeah, it's sort of, I'd say there's definitely negatives to it as well, right? Like an example from Amazon is how they built Prime in 1 year was the tech lead and the product manager would have fortnightly syncs like that. So it wasn't the product manager going and talking to each individual engineer, and it's really hard to do in a big organization, anyways. But you must. So that's just an Amazon example in case that's relevant. But it comes down to a simple question. Then what's the like? Hey, Sally, what's the answer? Right? You might be asking, do I have one-on-ones? Do I not? So I guess the matrix I would look at is, do you have a tech lead? If there's no tech lead, if there's no engineering manager, then yes, it makes sense to have one-on-ones. If there is a strong tech lead or engineering manager present, well, I would recommend against it, only unless you think the extra content really, really helps the team build better, ship faster. And then lastly, I would say, and this is a caveat, is how often are tickets or product specs misunderstood, right? If you're writing out a document or you have some sort of format, user stories, whatever you use, that is communicating to engineers, how often are they misunderstood, right? If they're often misunderstood, then maybe having one-on-ones as an experiment might make sense, but there's usually a deeper problem there. Then maybe either your writing is not correct or the engineers are not able to build correctly, right? And if you have a QA or a QA person on the team, having one-on-ones with them is also generally recommended because you're able to then more be in sync with whatever launch is coming, etc. So yeah, I'd say definitely have one-on-ones with your engineering and your QA lead. Not every engineer. If your team doesn't have a engineering lead, tech lead, then it makes sense for you to have one-on-ones with your engineers. Hopefully this helps. These are just my perspectives. And remember, you can always have retrospectives with the whole team whenever you need it, right? If something goes really, really wrong. Let's say you miss a launch date by 2 weeks. Have a retrospective. Spend 30 minutes being like, was it the prime manager's fault, engineer's fault? Whose fault was it? Maybe it was no one's fault, but how can we learn? How can we improve? So, yeah. Thanks for watching and like and subscribe.